Good evening, folks. We're going to call the March 26th JFC meeting to order. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and turn towards the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. You can take your seat. Good evening and welcome to the March 26th for the Joint Finance Committee meeting. My name is Steve Kalender. I am a Warren Town Councilman and I am also the chairman. I'd like to just take a short moment to do the introductions, and I'll start with chairman of the school committee is Erin Schofield. To her left is Brian Bradshaw. Raquel Pellegrin is the financial director for the district, and if I butchered your last name, I apologize. Thank you. Dr. Mario Andrade is the superintendent. Going down the line, we have the Bristol Town Council members, Aaron Lee, Antonio Texera, or I like to call him Tony, Mary Corella, Timothy Sweeney, Bristol Town Council President Nathan Calero, and our town administrator from Bristol is Steve Contente. Then we have Kerry Cronin, our Warren Town Council President, and Tamara Kaplan is our layperson or private citizen representative from the town of Warren, and then there is myself. I see every member of the Bristol Warren School Committee, and if you could all please stand just so that the members in the audience can see you. There's John Saviano. There's, all our members. Thank you very much for being in attendance. John Bento's not here yet? Oh, there he is right there. There he is coming in. Yeah. Thank you very much for being in attendance. We also have members of the Warren Town Council that are here. Brand Eckert is in the audience. Thank you, Brand. You can raise your hand and show your, there he is. Thank you. I know John Hanley's in the back. Thank you very much, John. And the Warren Town Administrator is Kate, and she's also sitting in the back in the red outfit. I believe I got everybody. Basically how the meeting is going to go is we're going to circle back and we'll give the opportunity for Dr. Andrade to do a quick synopsis and presentation of what he wants to do. We also have the acceptance of the minutes. I don't believe the minutes were disseminated to everybody. Did folks
I don't believe so, no.
No, okay. So if there's, go ahead.
Couple of state reps.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the state rep. I apologize.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Ms. Donovan, how are you? Good evening, I apologize. And it's not because you're not my rep, I just didn't put your face in this place, I apologize. It's great to see you, thank you very much, and thank you. Did I miss anybody else? I guess that's not bad, 9 out of 10, that's not bad. All right, that's pretty good. I can still get in the Hall of Fame with that. On conversation with the acceptance of the minutes, I don't believe they were disseminated via email, and the only copies out there are drafts. We'll instruct Ms. Warren to get those out. If there's any discussion, I'm more than happy to have it at this time. If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue that to our next meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Great. We also have on our agenda the discussion and action regarding schedule of next year's Joint Finance Committee meetings of the first and fourth Thursdays of March of 2020, which translates to March 5th and March 26th. Is there any discussion on those two dates? Everybody seems to be in agreement. As the dates get closer, I'm sure we'll have more communication on whether or not they logistically fit. Any input?
No, those dates were worked out with Kerry Cronin and myself to propose. There was a lot of challenges to get this many people in the room at the same time, so having that much advance notice seemed appropriate to both of us. Kerry pointed out that our Thursdays tended to be the best because of multiple challenges with different days of the week. It is a year out. I know that some had expressed some Thursday concerns. Is there any concerns with that a year out? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only night I teach, 6 to 8:45, and so it's the only night of the week too, and so.
So in keeping and being sensitive to that request, maybe we can make a motion to have those meetings on those weeks and then work out those particular days.
Sure.
If
Yep.
everybody's amenable to that.
And I should point out that I think it was our first meeting on the Bristol Town Council, I did submit all those dates ahead of time that I would not be able to go those Thursday nights, so.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
Great, we'll definitely work that out then as it gets closer. Also, I would like to put forward to the board, and if you're already here in the public, is the possibility of meeting in the month of September and November as those months get closer. And I was just wondering if there was any input, discussion, opposition. I'm open for any input.
I feel like you're talking to me, so I'll continue to
Sure.
respond. How's that? I think it's wonderful. I think it's very appropriate that we meet well before we get into the conversations that we're having this evening and before this evening.
You know, and if, I'm just gonna bring up a calendar real quick. Dealing with, we wanna do traditionally, educate me, you guys meet twice a month on your council or once a month?
Every third Wednesday.
You meet every
Makes a
third
difference.
Wednesday, okay? Every third Wednesday. So if we want to look at the week of the 23rd as a potential week in September, which would be the 4th week, and then in November, that may be a little more challenging because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but maybe the week of the 11th to the 14th, which would be the second week.
Mr. Chair, is it possible that you can send out an email with those proposed dates and we can pass it by both town clerks?
100%. It'll be done. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other input? Aaron, do you have anything?
No.
No? Tony? Mary? Nothing? No? Timothy? Good? Carrie?
Yeah, I agree. Send out an
Steve?
email.
Perfect. All right, very good. Now on to new business. This is the reason why we're all here. Discussion and action on the proposed 2019 and 2020 Bristol Warren Regional School District budget. Just before we allow Dr. Andre to take the podium, I just want to go over a couple of, I'm not going to call them ground rules, but more or less how this meeting will go forward. Although there is really no area for where it says public comment, there will be an allowable time for the public to come up and speak after Dr. Andre does his presentation. Here's how I would really prefer it goes. Everybody who comes up to the podium, please just give us a brief description of where you are from, where you live, what's your name, so on and so forth, so my recording secretary can record. Please speak into the microphone. As you can see, I'm leaning over here. For some reason, they will pick up everything, but they're not going to pick it up if you're not close enough to the microphone. Please make all your questions, statements, and comments to the committee. And if it's appropriate and there would need to be input from a member of the committee, it'll be followed up after the person concludes. Once you're concluded, you can have your seat. There's no reason to raise your hand, but if I do not recognize you, then just get my attention. I'll give everybody an opportunity to speak. Nobody's going to restrict what you have to speak, but if the subject matter has already been spoken upon, we'll probably just have you move on and we'll go to the next person. Once that's concluded, if there's any other comment that's needed from Dr. Andre, I'll allow him to respond. If he chooses not to respond, that'll conclude the public portion of the comment, and all the matters will come back to the committee. We'll have motions, we'll get into discussion, and hopefully we'll have a signed budget by the time we leave. Is there anything else from the committee? Dr. Andre, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight I'm just going to present an executive summary. 2 weeks ago we went into a lot of detail on the presentation. So tonight I'm just going to do a quick recap of that information. I know we recognize many of the elected officials tonight, but I also want to recognize the parents and the community members and the administrators who turned out tonight. So thank you for the general public coming out tonight and having a voice in the process. This evening, I just want to review our district goals. As we alluded to 2 weeks ago, we have 3 main goals. Goal 1 is to increase our school capacity to effectively address the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students to foster a safe and productive learning environment. Goal 2 is to increase the research-based academic and behavioral interventions to close the achievement gaps and address the social, emotional, and behavioral needs And goal 3 is students at each grade level will demonstrate proficiency or high growth in ELA or math by strengthening the core curriculum and research-based programs and instructional practices. So our budget actually supports those 3 goals. What's new in this budget, and what does this budget support? In the area of academic, social, and emotional behavioral supports, there'll be training in social emotional learning programs. There'll be an increase of special education teachers at KMS and Hugh Cole. There'll be an increase of a math specialist at KMS. There'll be a school resource officer at KMS. And this budget maintains the current class sizes. Additional educational student resources, as we presented 2 weeks ago, there will be an increase of textbooks, and we're also preserving all co-curricular and content areas. We're working hard in our partnerships with Sale Bristol Warren and Roger Williams and URI classes. This budget supports our current contractual agreements. And then also this budget supports our other contractual agreements to our increases in transportation costs and our increases to utilities and services. Furthermore, this budget supports our legal requirements, our out-of-district tuition costs and transportations, tuitions to charter schools and other state schools, and also our health, safety, repairs, and maintenance to our buildings. So that is essentially our budget in a nutshell. What does that mean for tonight's purposes? So how do we achieve a balanced budget? The loss of revenue is approximately $550,000. Increases in expenditures is approximately $2.9 million. So our total ask tonight is $3.5 million from the towns, or 9.25. To the town of Bristol, it's approximately 2.2 million, and from the town of Warren, it's approximately $1.2 million. That's really small print, so I'm not going to force people to read it. But essentially, you have that PowerPoint from last week, and the audience has a handout on this slide. And you can see the differences between 2019, 2020, and the variance between those 2 years. So in making this presentation tonight, we know that there are significant needs in this district. As I alluded to earlier, this district supports a lot of our contractual obligations, but we know over the last year or so, this budget is really supporting the transformation in our district. We talked about the Cullion call in the community on what do our schools look like. So I think now more than ever, it's really a definition of the transformation of our schools to support social emotional learning, to support wraparound services. A lot of our conversations are around what are those social emotional supports that we need for the students? How do we contract with community partners to bring in more neuropsych supports or clinical supports to our students? So right now, we know more than ever the mental health of our students is a major priority. So in this budget, our major priority is to develop and build the capacity of all adults, whether it's a secretary, a custodian, an administrator, or a teacher, around how do we support students in social emotional learning, and then provide a comprehensive system to support all students in their learning. So we know and we heard from the community on the safety in our schools, and it's not just, again, the physical safety, it's the social emotional safety, and that's harder to define. And this budget, I believe, supports that. We've known for the last 6 months, this is the cry of the community of what are we doing to ensure all students are successful, and that means the students who are in AP classes, to the students who are at most at risk. So our schools are actually being redefined as we speak, and I think this budget supports that transformation. We also know this is a big ask from both towns. So we are committed to continue striving for our success through district-wide efficiencies. We will be conducting independent evaluations and performance audits. We have a company coming in on Friday to look at the efficiencies of our technology department, our special education department, and our overall efficiencies. They will be conducting that audit. I'm thinking it'll probably take 6 months, and they'll come up with some recommendations. We're also developing district-wide equipment replacement plans, and we're also, in this budget, maximizing other district funds, reviewing all possible funding sources, revisiting current fund balance policies, and continually seeking grant opportunities. We also know that this is a partnership, and I'm very happy the chair talked about more meetings. We need to do and extend and explore continued partnerships with the towns. How can we maximize our efficiencies, whether it's around our energy bills, it's use of our natural resources, but we need to look at all possible partnerships and explore possibilities where there can be further collaboration. We also know we need to continue to explore collaboration with other school districts, and then continually evaluate all of our expenditures in all of our programs. And finally, we know that the better we can be at working together, the better we'll do by our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. At this time, I am going to allow any members of the public, if they so choose, to come forward and add any public comment on what Dr. Andre just presented. So is there anyone that would like to come forward? Yes, sir, please. Good evening and welcome.
My name is Pete Hewitt. I'm from Bristol. I'm a parent of 4 children, none of whom are in the Bristol school system, the Warren school system. They're all parochially educated kids. So I have kind of a bias, maybe, that at least you will consider my comments to be a little bit biased. I'm not a public education school expert by any means, but I did read the recent articles in the Bristol Phoenix on the 8.5% budget, also on the goals that Superintendent Andre has just outlined. And what I see, and perhaps this is an oversimplification of where we are right now in public education, I see a heavy emphasis throughout the entire both articles on investments, on social, emotional, behavioral, neuropsychiatric, psychology. My concern is that teachers are hired to teach. Teachers are not hired to take care of the disciplinary problems we apparently are experiencing in many of our public schools. Most recently, the notoriety given to the incidents of violence or of kids acting out that they kicked you at school. I never see the word discipline mentioned in these articles or mentioned in the budgetary plans. I see teachers being let go in order to hire more behavioral experts. Again, I don't think teachers are there to be the social workers of the students. And unfortunately, I believe, this may not be true, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, I think the Bristol Warren public school system is no different than other public school systems, where the teachers are stuck with kids who shouldn't be in the class. Disciplinary problems. Kids who either, and I'm looking around your posters here in the high school, respect, responsibility, honesty, and integrity. I like to see those terms and those notions mentioned much more in the public school budget and in the classroom and in the principals of schools, emphasizing to their kids and more importantly to their parents the importance of these terms as opposed to taking care of the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of the kids. That's not the function of public schools, I don't believe. that's a function of parents, families, medical authorities, psychiatrists, whatever. So with that in mind, I'm just wondering how much of the school budget might be saved if we focus more on teachers teaching than we are on taking care in the public school system of the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of the kid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Adam Ramos. I am a resident of Bristol. I'm also a member, I'm the vice chair of the Bristol Warren Regional School Committee, but I'm not speaking at all on behalf of the school committee. In fact, I wasn't planning on speaking at all, but in light of what I just heard, I want to express some thoughts around the importance of social emotional learning supports and behavioral supports for students, and talk a little bit about the need to ensure that we have adequate funding for those things so that we are living up to our responsibility as a community and as a school district to provide the educational opportunity for every child, including those children who have difficulties with social emotional issues, neuropsychological issues, and things of that nature. You know, the absence of the word discipline from the budget doesn't mean that there's no place for discipline of students. But we have an obligation as a community to ensure that not just the students who are prepared to come into class and be there and learn on a daily basis without support get an education, but that all students get an appropriate education. It's an obligation as a community, it's a legal obligation. And the funding for these programs is designed not to make teachers the social workers for our students, not to eliminate any teachers in order to provide for these additional roles. Rather, it is to allow the teachers to do what they do best, which is teach, while also allowing for there to be other resources that those teachers can call on when they have students who are struggling and being disrupted potentially in class, so that those students are removed and or not removed, but taken care of in a way that doesn't disrupt the learning of the students who are not having those troubles, and B, are provided with what they need in order to be able to be in the classroom or in whatever alternative setting that might be appropriate for them in order to get the education that they have a right to. So, the main reason for my comments here is to stress the importance of those social emotional investments and behavioral investments and neuropsychiatric investments within the schools, so that we're living up to our duty and obligation to ensure that we're providing education for all, not just education for most. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to? Yes, ma'am. I was going to say the young lady sitting next to Monty because I didn't know your name, but please come forward. Yeah. So I identified somebody who's one of my neighbors. You know. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome. Please identify.
Thank you. My name is Janine Castleman, and I am a Warren resident. I have a child at Cole, one at the middle school, and I've also had the occasion to host a number of international students at the high school, so I've seen the kids at all of our levels. I've emailed all of the JFC at this point, so thank you for already seeing my written comments. I wanted to echo the previous speaker's comments, however, because I do think that we need to invest in our social and emotional supports for teachers. It is, in fact, part of our community's responsibilities. I work as a legal consultant, serving in providing supports for health and human service care teams. So that means doctors and social workers around social determinants of health. When we don't actually address the social and emotional issues within our schools, we are actually creating inequity in the ability of children with disabilities to access education. So it is an important investment and it should not be left on the table. So So I do have one question for Dr. Andrade about exactly how much money is actually going to be going towards our new investments. But I also have a comment about how we think about budgeting. I feel like we have a lot of hard decisions between our two towns about how we're allocating our resources. I know that other towns can have the same problems we do. They have to pay for the fire and police. They have to pay for the town employees. And yet, they're also able to increase more money towards education allocations. So if we're going to ask our school budget to be more efficient and to make difficult cuts, I would like to see our towns also make the hard decisions about if you've got a limited pot of money, how are you prioritizing your allocations of resources? Because right now, I feel like it is not the priority as compared to how our similarly situated towns are allocating their resources. So I have a call to the people before me to think about how we actually organize the process of budgeting for our schools, okay? So, Dr. Andrade, if you could tell me a little bit more about exactly how much money is going to be going towards our behavioral supports, because I'm very concerned that given the legal obligations that you have, that if we don't get fully funded, this pot of money is going to be unavailable to support our kids.
So in this budget, it's roughly about $500,000 in social emotional supports. So it's additional. So currently our special education services is about $9 million. So new investments in social emotional supports is roughly about $300,000. It's $300,000 for new positions and about $200,000 in contractual services. That being said, we're also looking at multi-tiered supports. So similar to had a conversation with the town of Warren, we're looking at religious services with MCAP and how we support similar families. Some of that may be grant funded. So this is for our general fund, but as I just presented, we are always looking at grants so that we can bring in those wraparound services that cost next to nothing. So it's about $500,000.
Okay, and I thank you for that, and I would encourage us to make social emotional investments line item and not be dependent on grants. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your input. Yes, sir, in the back, please come forward. No, I'm sorry. I didn't. I'll go to you next time. Good evening and welcome.
Howdy, I'm Brian Miller. I've got kids at Rockwell and Smith Middle School. Both who are thriving and doing wonderful. As you see, it's been probably great over the coals about behavior problems and stuff like that. There's lots of kids doing great, so that I just figured should be said as well. And I always come up here and advocate for fully funding whatever you ask for because it's the right thing to do for the kids. And good to see you doing it.
That's it, thanks. Thank you. Yes, sir. Please.
Hello, my name is Brian Chittister. I'm a resident of Warren. I'm a teacher here at Mount Hope High School, and I'm the vice president of the Bristol Warren Education Association. And I'm going to maybe start by doing something a little bit surprising. As a union official, I'm going to stand up here and say that I want to fully support the comments of the school committee member who just spoke, because I think he was right on in terms of the question of a budget that provides for the supports that schools need so that teachers can teach. It's not a one or the other oppositional type of thing. It actually requires the supports that are included in the budget, and honestly more than what is included in the budget, in order to get us back to a point where teachers can fully teach without the distractions that we're seeing. I wanted to start with the fact that you may all be aware that about 6 weeks ago, a number of our colleagues at the middle school all seemed to get sick on the same day. We looked into this and we found that the proximate causes had to do with student behaviors, lack of services, and a general lack of happiness with how the administration was handling the situation. The ultimate causes are a long-term lack of funding. One of the things that is included in this budget is funding for an alternative learning program at the middle school. This is a new program compared to last year, but it is not a new program for our district. It existed previously and was cut because of cuts to the budget over years. I think you should understand that the sick out was not just about unhappiness with the administration, it was about unhappiness with the lack of funding in this district over years. I've lived in this district for 14 years, I've taught here for 18. In my memory, this body has not ever fully given the amount of the request from the school district. So it should not be a surprise now that the amounts that are being requested are rather large. The bills are coming due. I think, and this includes years, by the way, when I've gotten up here and criticized Dr. Andre for what I consider to be too modest a budget request in previous years. There are years when the increase to the school budget, the request was less than a 1% increase to the overall school budget, and still it was not fully funded by the Joint Finance Committee. I'd like to ask that you not say, oh, you need to go to the state for more funding, because I think you need to understand, not that people haven't told you for years, but you need to understand that in 2010, the state of Rhode Island said the towns of Bristol and Warren can put more into their schools. They need to put more into their schools. It's time to pay. You guys got a sweet deal from the regional school district. And by the way, I would be dead set against any move to deregionalization. I just want to put that out there now, because I think the regional district works to the benefit of the students of this district, of the residents of this district. I think it's financially the right decision, but it has to be fully funded. And the towns now need to step up and do that. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I'd heard a rumor that members of the town councils were not happy with the school administration for various reasons. I want to tell you right now that I think that our administrators, whatever you think of their performance is not going to be better by cuts to the schools. Nobody performs better when there's a lack of resources. They are going to perform better when there are ample resources, and that's why you need to fully fund this request, even if it's painful for you to do so this year. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir, please, come forward. No? Right next to Mr. Hayes, yes, come on forward. With that beard, you're gonna look a little like that, Hayes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Odell. I'm a Bristol resident. I've been living here for some 30 years, and both of my children went to the public school system. I now have a grandson in the public school system. I'm very comfortable with the education my children are receiving, and I consider it a bargain, quite frankly. Even if there's an increase in my taxes, it's okay. They're getting a pretty good education from my standpoint. A couple of points here tonight. The first gentleman stood up, absolutely correct. Teachers should be teaching in the classroom. We need teacher support. The problem is this: if you give teacher support, to me is like, okay, you give the teacher the professional development days, training, they have coaches. Well, congratulations, we're giving teachers teacher support. The next problem we have is child support. Is the child ready to learn? Is the child ready to learn individually? And is the child ready to learn as a part of a community of learners in the classroom? That's the problem we're presently having. Okay? The teacher needs to teach. The teacher shouldn't be bogged down with social, emotional issues in the classroom. These things are taking place, and it costs money to fix them. Okay, it may not be financially pleasant, but it's financially necessary. There was a discussion several years, we're talking 30 years ago now, where children are coming to school, for example, they weren't getting breakfast at home. Is it my problem not getting breakfast at home? Well, guess what? It becomes the school's problem. Because children were coming to school 30 years ago, they were hungry, they weren't ready to learn. We had teachers who were literally passing snacks out to kids in the morning, giving them snacks to eat because the children were not being fed at home. Should the teacher be doing this? No, the teacher should be teaching. So we started giving the kids breakfast. They need to eat. They need social, they need emotional support. They need to learn how to get along in a community. These things aren't happening someplace else for some reason. They should be, but they're not. We have to deal with the reality that we have. We've got problems, we need to fix the problems. It's going to take a little extra dough to fix the problems. We can't have teachers who have total support in teaching, but we have children sitting in front of them who don't have the support necessary to actually be doing the learning. That's the problem we're facing today. And we're supporting the teachers. I think we're doing a very good job supporting the teachers, but now we need to give a little extra support to the teachers, to the the students, to the children. You need to show the children that we care enough to support the things that they need to learn socially and emotionally. And again, I'm repeating myself, and I'll leave it at this, that we really need to look at our budget and spend the dollars necessary to provide for them the skills that they need to be creative, active learners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing none, I'm going to bring the discussion back to the committee. At this time, is there any members of the committee that have any questions for Dr. Andre that have not been answered? Seeing none, as I previously said to you before the meeting started, Dr. Andre, I would give you an opportunity to have the final word if you so choose to. So you can move to the podium or you can do it right from there.
So, Ms. Schofield, would you like the final word?
I'll say a few words, always. Do you want me here or?
Wherever you feel comfortable. Why don't you go to the podium? Thank you.
I'll speak briefly because I did speak last time, the last JFC meeting. I think we got a pretty bad shake in the media recently after the teachers' action. When I hear terms like bad apples, rough communities, tough schools, Bristol Warren does not pop into my mind at all. I think we have vibrant, safe communities. I think we have high-achieving schools. I think we have exceptional students. And I think the focus has been tonight again with everything we've heard from people who've stepped up to speak, and thank you so much, that our challenge is not what the media covered. Our challenge is what the teachers are telling us, and that's that they need support to support those students, because teaching is changing. Yes, teachers teach, teachers are trained to teach, but teaching is changing. And as I said at the last JFC meeting, I feel like this is not just a school issue or just an education issue, it's really a community issue. And we all really have an opportunity here to come together and think about what we want our schools to look like. So in that conversation is, what do we want our children to look like when they come out of our schools and become community members? I think that's a really important thing to think about when we're talking about investing in education. Thank you.
Thank you. My esteemed colleague to my right indicated she had a comment, so please, by all means.
I do. I first want to thank both councils for being so generous and for allowing me to sit with you at this table, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think what I would like to say, and as Erin mentioned, the idea of teaching is changing, and I think we are changing. I think our communities are changing, and I think that I would like to just put a thought in our heads where we can maybe imagine and dream of a new system that works for our communities, because I'm not sure that the one we have is working in the way that we all need it to work. And I think there is a way to do this. I'm not sure what it is, but I think we are very smart and intelligent folks that are sitting in this room and then also out in our towns, that once we put our heads together, we could come up with a new system to think about how our schools and our towns can work together to pass a budget that is meaningful and thoughtful, and there is that was just my comment. I think, you know, when I sat down, and when I was given a lot of this information, my first initial reaction was, oh, is there a 3-year budget plan? You know, where is, you know, is there a budget attached to the strategic plan? How do we look forward so that we're not always being reactive to the process and we're being proactive? So then I would just like to put that out into the room and see if we can move forward from here.
Thank you very much. So as the subject matter moves back to the committee, I'll be going down and asking if there are any motions for us to move forward. As we do so, please, every member, again, remind yourself to speak loudly and clearly into the microphone. This is not the most comfortable position, I will agree. We need longer mics. And while we're doing this, if members of the public would just maintain and conduct themselves appropriately, so that way we're not talking over each other. So, moving forward. At this time, is there any other further discussion on anything that Dr. Andrade has presented or any member of the public? Yes, sir, Tony, go ahead.
Actually, yes, I do have 2 questions. One, will the district be eligible for reimbursement of the SRO for kicking you?
Yes. So it's part of the governor's budget. So so 50% of the 180 days that they're in the building will be reimbursed by the state. So for the 180 days that the SRO is in the building, 50% of that will be reimbursed. And then in our budget, we approximately have $30,000 to offset the cost of the town of Warren in year 1.
Do you anticipate, or do you know how many retirements you may have for this upcoming school year?
So there's a few retirements coming in. So far they're at the elementary level, so they'll be replaced by a teacher. So if anything, the offset might be the change in the salary, but Bristol Warren, we're known for hiring the best available teachers, so I do, if that's a 10-step teacher or a 12-step teacher, I think we owe that investment to our students. We will not only hire a first-step teacher, but all the retirements that I know of right now are at the elementary level. There's no reduction of staff at that level.
Thank you.
Anything else, Tom? Thank you very much. Ms. Pauling,
One
please.
little green energy question for you. In the budget documents, it says that the district is going to spend $532,000 in electricity in this upcoming year. Is the district working to offset or find any sort of green alternatives? And if I recall, there was an RFP put out some time ago.
Yeah, so about a year ago, we looked at the net metering. During the transition with our director of finance, we held off for a little while, but we are researching net metering. I know the town of Warren just signed a contract, so we'll be looking for some advice in that regard. I think similar to the town of Bristol, for net metering as well. So we are exploring those options.
Anything else? Thank you. Is there any other member? Yes, sir.
I just had a question in regards to the audit that you guys are going to be doing. What is that going to entail? Can you just tell me a little bit more about the audit you mentioned?
So it'll be an efficiency on the overall of the district. We have, right now we're FTEs, administrators, a comprehensive aspect, look at our technology department and also our special education. This one of the consultant firms that we're in contact works with a lot of schools in Massachusetts and then the Midwest, so they're known for doing a comprehensive audit and then additionally providing and working with the district on the recommendations and the transformation plan. So we're looking for something comprehensive so that we can actually look at, giving the JFC and the school committee some updates. I'm hoping, as again, if we're looking at collaboration, where are districts and towns around the country that have a better partnership, so there's more efficiencies between the schools and districts. So everything's on the table at this point, and anything is possible.
Yeah, no, I'm just pleased that you're moving forward with that on there, because I think it's quite needed, especially with what the state is sending us, the signals that they don't really want to fund education as much anymore. I mean, it seems to be every year we're getting cut, which is causing these bigger gaps, and then there's the community's ability to pay as well, so
Yes.
having to balance it out, I'm looking forward to seeing the results of those on it.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member that has any comments? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion on the proposed, Mary, go ahead, please.
No, it's gonna be a motion when you get to that point.
Yeah, I am at that point, the chair will entertain a motion.
So I make a motion that we, 2% increase for a summary operation cost of $398, 426. Debt service, $1,586,050 for a total authorization of $54,984,476.
I'll second that. There is a duly seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
So just to be clear, is that that's a 2% increase on the Bristol side? Is that from?
No, it's a 2% increase to the school budget. I just checked on that.
From the previous year?
Correct.
Yep.
So the motion has been made, it has been duly seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, go ahead, yep.
Yeah, I guess I have some questions about it, and I think it's probably worthy of discussion. I know that in our budget, we had started off at 2.5% for the schools. That had been something that we had discussed during the budget workshops. My understanding from our discussion during the budget workshops was that the 2.5% was just to keep us at the cost of living for the schools. And I'm talking about the Bristol budget increase right here. So it seems to me that the 2% might be a little bit low. And one of the things that I was hoping for when I walked in here was that we would at least be at the 2.5%. And then in addition to that, ensure that we do have the additional supports for the social emotional supports that are needed in the schools, because when I heard about what was happening at KMS, I heard a lot of good things that were happening with the schools. I heard about Gutierrez maintaining its star rating. I heard about Holt Andrews. I sat there when Senator Reed came to town to celebrate this blue ribbon school that we have. So Gutierrez, Holt Andrews, Rockwell, and so I didn't see any suggestion that there was something bad that was happening here, so we have to reduce the rate at which we were funding the schools. I actually thought we might increase that a little bit, and so that's kind of my position on this. I'd like to see a little bit more than the 2%. I wouldn't be able to support a 2% increase in the budget over last year.
We could just take a vote and see what happens. I mean, I suggested that because after going through, Bristol has, I understand the situation, I understand the social emotional cost. I just want to make one quick comment about that. To Aaron's point, there is no guarantee, just under the law, that whatever we give you, like we can't say to the school district, we will give you $10 million for social emotional, because we're not allowed to give them line items. So I think that it's all important. I think every single thing that is going on in education in general is important. I feel that after having been through our budget last week and the revaluation and what we have hitting us, there's some very significant changes to the taxpayers in Bristol that I think
don't know where that's all gonna fall out. Things that I've heard just from my colleagues, like, is a little bit frightening, I think, in terms of people's tax bills going up, you know, $600,000, $8,000, things on hundreds of thousands. And I think that that is a good starting point. I think the thing to keep in mind, and I know people here in this audience don't want to hear this, but, you know, we have, I think, been as generous as we could be over the years, and Bristol has really taken a big hit on school funding. And I think, given the circumstances of everything that we have this year, at the town level, I think that that's reasonable. As you know, our town budget only went up 1.7%. And so the person who said that we need to really cut back, I just would invite you to come and take a look. We're very, very lean. I can only speak for Bristol. I don't know about the about Warren. We have a very lean budget, and we try to be as strategic and plan as far in advance as we can. We're very, very fortunate in Bristol that we have some great staff to go after every grant opportunity there is out there, it seems like. So we get a lot of our projects either fully funded or half funded by federal or state money. So we're very fortunate in that regard. But there's not a lot of waste. I think there's an idea that you can look at the town budget and there's all these things you could cut out. And we don't have, we'd be here forever if we had a discussion about all those things, because some people would say we shouldn't do trash. I mean, I've heard it before. We shouldn't do trash pickup. We shouldn't do snow removal, things like that. Until a certain point of, you know, so many inches of snow. I think that Bristol is, our communities are successful because we have a good array of services. We have a real community with a downtown and with activities, and I think we want to keep a range of people of all ages living in the community. And I think that's getting tougher and tougher. So that's why I put that proposal in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Mary. I believe Terry has a comment.
Yeah. Part of this whole process, this cycle has been, in my opinion, an improvement over years past, in that there's been a lot more transparency. And I think we've been really good, our town manager sharing budget information with Bristol town administrator. So I think we all really know and understand where we stand from a financial position as two communities. But we are two communities that need to work together and need to share the most important cost, which is educating our students. And you know, when we went through our budget process in Warren, we plugged in an amount that we felt we could really live with and pass on to our taxpayers, a figure that we felt was as generous as we could comfortably pass along, and that wouldn't send people, you know, moving out of town, would still preserve our services and still give people the sense of pride, though, that in their community and in the education that we provide our students. And I know you did the same thing. And I know that the number that you plugged in was half a percent higher than where you're going right now. And I know that we have to answer to our taxpayers, and I think that there's going to be some disappointment from our taxpayers anyway if we don't show the value in education by funding at a little bit higher level. And I don't think that by going a half a percentage point, or going to 2.5 would any of us at risk of blowing our budgets up and not being able to meet the needs of our communities. So I would respectfully ask if you would be willing to amend your motion and go a little higher.
So before just hold on one second, let me just circle back. So before we get into amendments or concessions, we do have a duly identified motion and it has been seconded. If Ms. Perella would like to withdraw that motion, then we would entertain that there any other discussion on Ms. Perella's motion? Go ahead.
Probably poor negotiating, but I would also be, I've seconded the motion too. Couple of points that I'd like to make. I think a couple of great points have already made, talking about how it, preserving our budgets. And our budgets are not our budgets. The people that are sitting here don't get to spend the money. We don't see the benefit of that money. As a resident, we do. We are all affected by that. Mary brought up a really good point, is that we're in the middle, Bristol's in the middle of a revaluation. You may have read some of that in the Phoenix last week. You're going to see a presentation at tomorrow night's Bristol Town Council meeting from our reval agency. Those revals are not equal in how they affect people. What I'm talking about is our proposed budget has a decrease in the tax rate. We went from 1536 down to 13, I'm doing this off memory, 1350 approximately. That adjustment is because property values went up. Property values do not go up evenly. Some people will see no increase in their property values. Some might see a decrease, I don't know. Most will see some sort of increase, and that some sort of increase will vary from home and condominium and all of that. So when we talk about this, we try to, it's a guesstimate, it's a well thought out guess, but it is a guess on how it's going to affect people. Mary brought up about how I had brought up some examples of how much these may go up depending on what your value of your home goes up. We think about this, or at least I do, and I think my colleagues do too. We think about this not only from the person who gets from paycheck to paycheck and can barely afford any increase, to the person who can afford this with no problem. We're supposed to represent, and we do, everyone. So this is a balance on that. I know for myself, when looking at this 2, and even the 2.5 that has been bandied around, stays within the budget that we have proposed out there. I think it is going to be a challenge for residents, and just the same with these increases. As Mary also pointed out, our our budget went up on the municipal end about 1.75%. That was, and I'm going to give the administrator a lot of credit, he gave us a budget that was cut very, very closely. And we followed that. We did make some adjustments to it, very few, but it was a very appropriate budget, trying to stay within to be reasonable. I've all talked about the numbers. Some things came up this evening about policy. This board, and I know you know this, but I'll say it anyway, does not create policy. We don't tell the school, nor can we tell the school how to spend the money, when to spend the money, and why to spend the money. We can only approve a bottom line. So you brought up some great points, but we cannot move the needle on that either way, both positive or negative. We cannot change that. What we can do is approve a bottom line. And I did second this. I will vote for this, but I would also vote for the 2.5%, just so we're clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I was going to remind that we're all very educated and experienced politicians up here. Just because you second a motion doesn't mean you have to vote for it.
I agree.
Okay. So,
I tend to follow through though. So.
yeah. You're not obligated to vote for a motion just because you second it. Or even to vote for the motion even if you make the motion. They're two separate issues. Is there any other further discussion? Do you have something to say, Mr. Administrator?
I just feel compelled to speak after
Please, by all means.
Councilman Blake. I know if you're basing your view on the funding around our county budget, that was at 2.5%. I certainly stand by that number that I put in there. There is no algorithm in figuring out what the appropriate amount is. A lot of it is knowing your community, knowing the people in town, the people at the lead, that they want to stay in their homes, that are here in the town hall. And as you've heard, there's a reevaluation here this year, and if we had a magic wand, we would give everything we could. Again, I feel compelled to say I have children in the district, and we want nothing but the best for our children. But it's the responsibility of your administration to provide a sound budget that prioritizes what's important, and that's what we did with the municipal budget. And I ask that the school committee and the administrator work together to prioritize and work within this budget. The last couple of years, we've been here and we talk about how successful the district is, and it is. We know that, we can prove it. many great successes. In 2018, 428 full-time employees. After a not fully funded 2019, 428 employees. And I anticipate, hopefully you'll continue on the same path, maintaining what you have and readjusting where necessary. That's what needs to happen. But a 2.5% increase, that stays up with the times. That's the average consumer price index, 2.4 for 2018. I think it's reasonable, I think it's just, and I think we're still moving forward with that amount. So I echo what Councilman Lay says, 2.5 is, I believe, reasonable.
Just for the record, I do want to note that 2.5% is not my preference. I would actually prefer to go a lot more than that. And the reason why is because I think that the 2.5% just keeps us at the cost of living. And then what I would like is, my preference would be, to at least, and I know that Councilwoman Perella rightly pointed out that there's no way that we can, compel the school district to spend the money the way that we want to spell it or anything like that. But ultimately, what ends up happening is we do appropriate the money, and then it is ultimately up to the school district to make the decision how to spend it, and then we hold the school district to account for how they decide to spend it. And it's ultimately us that holds them accountable through hearings and everything like that, and through our powers of oversight. So in fact, I think that at the very least, what we would have to do is we would have to at least cover the 2.5%, and then ensure that Bristol covers our share, the $315,000 needed for some of the social and emotional supports.
Thank you. Tony, I believe you have something?
I believe you need a second on,
Oh, there is a second. No, yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, Nathan
I thought we were
made a
in
second, so we're
discussion.
still having discussion.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? So traditionally, when I've been a chairman on a committee, I've always allowed the committee members to speak, and then I've added my point of view at the end. My point of view is basically going to echo what we've been talking about. I would be in support of a 2.5% increase. I feel it's reasonable. I believe the administrator has made the appropriate points on the matter, and I would hope that that's what we could come up with. But we do have a motion before us that has been duly seconded. If there is no further discussion, I am going to ask for a vote. No further discussion? All in favor of Ms. Perella's motion? Signify by raising your hand, please. I see 2 in favor, all against. So the motion dies. So the chair will now entertain a new motion.
I'd like to make a new motion to increase the school budget by 2.5%, which would be a total authorized local aid of $39,020,179. I can give you the rest of the math if you'd like it. That's what the local aid would be.
I'll second that.
So the motion has been made by Councilman Calero. It has been duly seconded by Councilman Texera. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Don't be shy now. No further discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna take this idea that Councilman Lay had said, like, is there a way of saying, okay, here's, 2.5, and then we split the 500,000?
No.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be curt on that. I
No,
apologize.
you are fine. You are fine. I was just throwing it out. No.
So I think in order to do something like that, we would have to make the
You'd have to
motion
move
on the
the-
basis of the same format that my colleagues were using. And it would probably be around 3.4% for Bristol.
Got it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion that is before the board? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? The motion passes 8-1. Thank you, members. I appreciate your input. Seeing that we have no further business on the agenda, is there any other comments?
Could you just?
Can you count that one more time?
7-2.
7-2, I believe.
Yeah.
Councilman Texera, did you vote in favor or against?
No, I voted in favor.
In favor.
I
that's right.
misunderstood. My
Yeah,
apologies.
thanks. Yep.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You may.
I just want to make the official motion here, if I may, which is,
The floor is yours.
thank you. Whereas the Joint Finance Committee has the responsibility and the authority to bind the towns of Bristol and Warren, providing the funding adequate for the continued operations of our regional school district based upon the community's ability to pay, the amount of state and other aid available, and the appropriateness and the expenditure shown requested budget. And whereas the Joint Finance Committee recognized the continuing significant educational progress, fiscal responsibility, and the commitment and the dedication of staff, administration, and school committee. Whereas the Joint Finance Committee is acutely aware of the financial crisis facing our nation, state, and town, be it resolved that the maximum expenditure level of the Bristol-Warren Regional School District, exclusive of grant state pensions cost funding, is set at $55,174,819. Summary operations costs are $53,588,769. Debt service at $1,586,050. Total authorization is $55,174,819. The estimated non-local aid is $16,154,640. The authorized local aid is $39,020,179. That breakdown is a Warren student population of 1,261, or 36.97%. By the way, that's the 13-year average that you see there. And then the Bristol student population of 2,150, or 63.03%. The breakdown of Bristol share is 11,895,200. I'm sorry, I read the wrong line. The Bristol share of $27,004,927. The Warren share of $11,895,279. Clarification, I apologize. Let me give you the Bristol and Warren share one more time. Bristol share of $27,124,900. Warren share $11,895,279. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all your help and information. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude and adjourn our meeting, I would like to personally thank everyone that has come to not only this meeting, but the other meetings and been a part of the process. I see many members from the school district that are here. I would like to thank them for them also being in attendance. I would personally like to thank Dr. Andrade and his staff, every member of the Bristol Town Council, Town Administrator, my esteemed colleagues from the Warren Town Council that are here at the committee and also in the audience. And thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn?